Hi, I'm Minette Rushing, owner of Custom Cakes in Savannah, Georgia, and today I'm going to share with you my technique for doweling and stacking a tiered cake. All right, here's what we'll need. We'll need a small level, we'll need plastic dowels, a PVC cutter, a long 1/4-inch wooden dowel that's been sharpened on the end and has a point, a pencil, hammer, and a pair of pruning shears. All right, we're going to stack a 10, an 8, and a 6-inch tier cake. So to start with, I'm going to dowel the bottom first. And before I get started, I want to make sure that the table that I'm going to dowel on is level. So I've checked my table and I know it's level. I also don't ever do it on a turntable because there's always some give on the turntable. It's always best to do it on a solid surface. So the cake going on top of this 10-inch is an 8-inch. So if you're new to doweling and stacking, it might be helpful to have an 8-inch piece of cardboard to set your measurements with. All right, we've got our board centered, and I'm going to mark 4 places with my stick pin. And that's because this is where we'll put the dowels. Now on this 10-inch cake, I'm going to use 4 dowels. All right, now I can remove this and I have my pins to use as a guide. All right, now we're ready to cut our dowels. So you need to check and see if your cake has a high side. And you can either do that by using your level, or if you have a good eye, you can check your eye. But wherever the high spot, whichever the high side is on the cake, is where you want to put in the first dowel. So we've got our little dot here. So I'm going to come in about a 1/2 inch. Here's the dot, place my finger, and on the other side of my finger, I'm going to put the dowel. I'm going to try to push the dowel in straight, up and down, until I feel it hit the board the cake is on. All right, next, I'll take my graphite pencil and mark where I'm going to cut the dowel. I'm just going to twist it and gently pull it out. Okay, and you can see where I've made the mark. And that's where I'm going to cut it with my PVC cutters. And now I'm going to put it back in and make sure it's where I want it, and it's exactly where I want it. All right, we need to cut 3 more pieces of dowel, and they all need to be the same size as that first cut. So I'm always going to use the first one as my guide. I'm going to cut it and check it and set it aside. Cut the next one. Check it, set it aside. And then I'll cut the last one. Okay. All right, now let's put the dowels in. Come right across here. Again, here's our mark. So I'm going to come in. Try to keep it straight up and down. Here's our mark. Here's our mark. Okay, I've got my dowels in, and I'm going to test them with this level to make sure they're level. They look good to me. Okay, perfect, exactly where we want them. Now I'm going to go ahead and dowel the 8-inch cake. The cakes are doweled, so now I'm ready to stack them. All right, you always want to stack your cakes on, again, a straight surface and not on a turntable. A turntable has too much give, so always stack it on a straight, sturdy surface. Another thing you want to look for before you start stacking the cakes, you want to check and see if you have a high side. And you can either do that with your level or you can do it with your eye if you've got a good eye. So let's say you have a high side. You'll want to find the high side, and then on the cake that's being put on top of this cake, you'll want to find the low side so that you match the low side to this cake to the high side to this cake. And I've checked and mine are pretty level, so I'm not going to put any sort of buttercream or royal icing or anything in here to hold it. I find that the condensation is enough to keep them from sliding around. I'm going to use my spatula to kind of move the cake into the position where I want it. And again, you can either use your eye or you can use your hemming tool to see if you've got it lined up correctly. Okay, it looks to me like it needs to come towards me just a little bit. Now I'm not pulling the cake, I'm actually lifting the cake, the 8-inch cake off of the 10-inch because I don't want to drag my dowels. All right, let's go ahead and put the top tier on next. And like I said, you want to, again, check to see if there's a high side and then check to see where the low side is here. And you'll match the low side of this cake to the high side of this cake. I'm going to put my spatula in and use that to move my cake and check it. I think it needs to come back just a little bit. All right, so we've got the cake stacked. Now the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to run a center dowel all the way through, and I want the dowel, I'm going to countersink the dowel or put the dowel in just a little bit below the top of the cake. And I find out where I want it. I'm going to mark it. And then I'll use my pruning shears to cut. And I don't use these to clip my hedges with. I just use them to cut my dowels. Okay, so I want to make sure, yeah, that looks good. All right, so let's go ahead, and in the center of the cake I'm going to push it in, and I've got a sharp point on it. I'm going to push it in until I feel resistance, and that'll be from the cardboard that this cake is sitting on. And I want you to listen for the sound. All right, that sound tells me that I've hit the table with the point, and that's what I want. So now I know it's all the way in, and it's also sunk all the way through this cake drum that we're using. All right, we try to deliver all of our cakes in one finished out in one piece. Now I've got a hole in the top of my cake, and usually we have something on top that we're going to decorate it with. But whether we do or not, the way we fill this hole, our buttercream is pretty much the same color as the fondant. So we'll take that and then just smooth it out. So you have to really be looking to see that there was a hole there. All right, before I decorate it and put a border on it, where I have little gaps, I'm just going to fill it in with just a little bit of buttercream. And then I'll take my palette knife and go back and kind of wipe the excess off. Now that our cake is all together, it's ready for the border to be placed and to be decorated.